All right, welcome everyone. I now call the July 1st, 2025 regular City Council meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this point, we'll take a moment to take roll of the council members by position number. So please say here when the city clerk calls your name. City clerk?
Thank you. Councilmember Zorn?
Here.
Mayor Thompson?
Here.
Councilmember Alders?
Here.
Councilmember Kurd?
Here.
Councilmember Mankey?
Here.
Councilmember Dodd? Here. Deputy Mayor Alcabra?
Here. All
present.
Thank you. Before we continue with the rest of the agenda, I'd like to reiterate some meeting guidelines. For remote meeting attendees, please speak clearly and pause frequently and mute your microphone when not speaking. First up on our agenda is meeting agenda approval. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to public engagement opportunities. Fireworks reminder. As we approach the 4th of July, please remember that all fireworks are illegal in Bothell city limits except for sparklers, tanks, and novelty devices, which can only be discharged on July 4th from 9 a.m. until 11 p.m. We've got the Moonlight on Main series, Bothell's Summer Nights Market series. It continues every Saturday into September right downtown from 6 to 11 p.m. on Saturdays through September 13th. Come down, it's fun. We also have an urban forest survey as part of our urban forest master plan, our first ever, and street tree inventory, which helps plan for a resilient urban forest. Take a brief survey to help shape this important work, open now through July 13th. We have one proclamation today. I'm guessing some of you know that. For Disability Pride Month. Whereas Disability Pride Month is celebrated every July to commemorate the Americans with Disabilities Act, landmark legislation signed July 26, 1990 to prohibit discrimination against individuals with disabilities in public life and provided the foundation for disability rights as we know them today. And whereas Disability Pride Month offers an opportunity to celebrate the diverse identities of people with disabilities, and whereas people with disabilities fought for civil rights for themselves and others for decades and continue to advocate for equal access on a daily basis. And whereas people with disabilities deserve equitable treatment in places of work and education and for every part of our community where access is provided to include everyone who needs it and not out of obligation. And whereas people with disabilities make enormous contributions to the city of Bothell's economy, culture, and civic life, and whereas many organizations in the city of Bothell support and celebrate people with disabilities, including the Alyssa Burnett Center, Cascadia College, Kindering, and more, and whereas the city of Bothell is committed to working in partnership with these organizations and others to ensure that people with disabilities are welcomed and celebrated in Bothell. Now, therefore, I, Mason Thompson, Mayor of the City of Bothell, do hereby proclaim July 2025 as Disability Pride Month in the City of Bothell to celebrate that our community members with disabilities contribute to our vibrant city and reaffirm our commitment to working toward a more equitable and accessible society. Someone's on hand to accept. I think we have members from Kindering, Alyssa Burnett Center, and Cascadia College. So come on up to the microphone and I'll meet you down there.
Hello, everybody. My name is John Winberg. I am a classroom assistant and instructor at the Alyssa Burnett Center. I would like to thank you so much for acknowledging people with disabilities within the city of Bothell. This is very important to me as an advocate. I have been an advocate for 27 plus years, and I continue to do so because I was born with a disability. And so everything that you continue to do as far as this proclamation will go way beyond for our community. Thank you so much, and And again, thank you for welcoming our diverse community.
Okay, cool. I'm Ben Moore, along with John Runberg. I am also an employee of the Alyssa Burnett Center. I've been in advocacy many years now, and since July is Disability Pride Month, what that means to me is that it's not like prideful is in like, oh, I'm prideful. It's the prideful is in like we celebrate like our differences and that we all have unique and beautiful ways of doing things. Behind me, I have Praveen, who is a student and student ambassador of the ABC. And the ABC is an amazing place where we rise, which stands for respect, include, support, and enjoy. The students came up with that concept, then it spread to staff. The staff are using it, Rise too. And Rise just helps us to be able to celebrate the diversity and the uniqueness and the disability pride of that's the month of July. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Ben. Hey, guys. My name is Praveen. I'm a student ambassador at the Alyssa Burnett Center. I always like to help out other people who are going through what they're going through. Also, I always ask for help, like if anything I need it. So I asked John, like I said to John, I need help finding which class I'm taking. I'm also a RISE student for Respect, Include, Support, and Enjoy. Part of my disability was I have autism, basically, so the only problem is I don't drive because I don't have my license. So RISE is basically Respect, Include, Support, and Enjoy. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great one.
Thank you. I'll just give a very brief but sincere thank you on behalf of Kindering. My name is Christina Mendieta. I'm the Director of Public Affairs at Kindering. And as many of you know, we serve lots of kids with developmental delays, disabilities, and other needs. And one of our 4 campuses is right here in Bothell. And so I just want to thank you for sending this very clear message to our families that you see and care for their kids with disabilities, and that Bothell is a place that aims to be inclusive of them as children and as they grow up. And I just wanted to share one quote. We asked members of our community, what does disability pride mean to you? And so I'll just share one because I thought it sort of encapsulated it, which is disability pride emphasizes that we all have value and worth and should be fully included in our families, communities, and society. So thanks for making that happen.
All right, you guys want to get a picture?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Open this up.
Good job.
I think it's over here.
Yeah, with the mayor.
Yeah.
So we're going.
I love it.
You're all good. I know what you're doing.
For the record, if this feels awkward to you guys, it's awkward for us all the time. All right, the city has accepted public comment in writing as well as signups for those who wish to speak at tonight's meeting. Written comments submitted to the city clerk no later than 3 p.m. today were forwarded to all city council members and are part of the record. When the clerk calls your name, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please note that council will receive your input, but we do not engage in discussion of these topics. Staff will make note of items requiring follow-up. City clerk?
We do not have anybody signed up to speak. We do have one person in the virtual audience, and if that person, Jenny, would like to speak, please use the raise hand function and I will panel you in. So you have 3 minutes, and other than that, I don't see anybody else in the room that wishes to speak. We don't have anybody.
I'm going to give Matt a little extra time just in case he wants to. All right, in that case, we are going to move to reports and kick it over to the city manager for the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Welcome to July. It's a very busy week, so I have a few updates of some things to be aware of, and then following my update, our Deputy Director of Public Works, Steve Morikawa, will be coming to the table to talk through a potential letter that we want to see if Council would like us to draft and send on your behalf. So for a few reminders, as I mentioned for tonight, first of all, the call for pro-con committee volunteers remains open and is advertised on the city's website. This is for the potential Proposition 1, a renewal of the Safe Streets and Sidewalks levy, which the council has us moving forward on. So there's one more week, though, that to communicate interest to the city clerk, that if people want to serve on either the pro or the con committee for that proposition. And then city council is scheduled to appoint both committees on the 15th of July. So wanting to make sure that people have that on their radar. Second, and more immediately, is Friday is the 4th of July, and we have our full slate of celebrations before us. It includes from 8:30 to 10:30 the pancake breakfast at the park at Bothell Landing. At 11:15 the children's parade steps off, and then at noon is the grand parade with I think Nick told me 90 entrants. So we've got a lot of action heated up. Now, normally after the parade, there is a car show, but as you may recall, it's not taking place this year. The organizers had to take a pass in 2025, and we hope to see that returning in 2026. But there is another opportunity once the parade is over, and actually beforehand too, if people want to fuel up a little bit, is that the Pop Shop Market will be taking place from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that has been the last couple of years out on the Multi-Way Boulevard, but this year is moving into Lot E, F, and G. So it'll be a larger activation with multiple food vendors. So a good opportunity to go check out options as a household with food allergies. I noted 2 that look like they have delicious options for food allergies too. So everybody should go check it out. And related to the 4th of July, I just want to note a thank you in advance to all of our employees who work so hard really throughout the year. The planning doesn't really stop, and it really kicks in at the first of every year. But there's so much that goes into making this hometown celebration a success, and truly from every department in the city. We have nearly 150 named employees who have assigned roles to making both the pancake breakfast and the parade take place. And that's a significant portion. Over 40% of our employee population puts their time into setting the table for the community to really enjoy what is an iconic day for the city of Bothell. And that's not even to consider the support 24/7 that will also be going in well into the night. So the official events, but then everything that takes place afterwards. So thank you to our employees. We'll get a chance to say thank you in person as well, and certainly following up next week. But again, so much goes into it, and I know the community is grateful. Transitioning away from the 4th of July and the parade, there's a lot also happening in downtown construction-wise. So one highlight, in case there was any concern, has been, as we updated a few meetings ago, the bollard work for Main Street and Festival Street has been ongoing. So the good news is if you go out tonight, it's It's not parade ready yet, but it will be. So, but on July 3rd, any of the traffic control signs for closing the streets during construction and the steel plates will be removed. And all sidewalks and the streets will be accessible for the parade. The concrete pour for bollard storage and the sidewalk will not be cured enough for vehicles, but they will be cured enough for the foot traffic and the parade traffic. So everything should be ready to go, but if somebody wants to knock on the panel behind you, that would be awesome. And we'll certainly update anything that changes. With that, I anticipate the next question would be is, so what can we expect? So during the parade, obviously, the bollards will be removed. Once they go in, we wanted to highlight what they're going to look like a little bit. So certainly there's been conversations about the current condition of we have the road closed signs and the ecology blocks. And so what the bollards are going to do, we had been focusing on how do we make them visible so that people see them, because again, as comical as it is, like every month or so, I see somebody who almost turns into it. So we want to make sure they're visible. And now I know how popular orange is, so I want to show you what the color of the bollards will look like, which is not orange. So they are a green and blue Northwest aesthetic with stripes. So no matter what your color, how your brain processes color, this is what they're going to look like. The stripes will set it apart, and there's some different shades. So that's what you can expect to see here this summer. And then also another frequent question is around signage. So as we move into having them, there will be signs posted also that can be flipped up and down. There's probably a technical term for that, but sometimes the bollards will be there, sometimes they won't, especially on Festival Street. But the design of what we're going to be looking for and the locations are here. So really we have three types of signs depending on which direction you're coming from. Either there's no street forward movement, there's no left turn, there's no right turn, and on the slide you can see a map of where they're adjacent to. But what you can pretty much map without seeing the numbers is it depends on which direction you're coming from and where the bollards are. But that's what people will see as the reminder as they are in vehicular traffic of don't go this way, you're going to wreck your car. So that is that's the quick update on what to expect. We're looking forward to having this project completed soon, and it looks like next week we'll have further progress. So that's what I have for you here. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and then have Steve come forward, and I'll stop sharing my screen so he can take over.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the update. It's exciting. Just curious, are these signs going to be permanent, or are they like LED, they light up when the bollards are up, or how does it work?
What I believe is that they'll be up and visible when applicable. So for Main Street, when the bollards are there, the signs are just going to be there, posted on the side of the road. And then for the Festival Street one, there's more of a transition for them. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
So I just want to put a really fine point on it. So you're telling me, is the morning of July 4th the last time the orange signs that say road closed will be there?
I don't think quite there, but we're within days of that. There will be
5 years later.
Yeah. So I think on the 9th is what my head math reminds me of, is like the contractor still has to finish the striping and that sort of thing. So there's some more activities that are going on, but yeah, you'll see them very soon.
Soon it will be a very good day.
Yeah, indeed. Let's hope so. You just never know. All right. Next up, as noted in the packet, we were recently contacted by the city of Kirkland, notifying us that they had sent in a letter to King County Metro about the Metro Flex program. We got the wrong presentation going, but that's all right. We're going to fix it. Amy to the rescue. For the Metro Flex program, which some of our residents may not even be familiar with, but the basis of it was due to utilization. King County Metro was looking to discontinue the service. Kirkland has sent a letter. I think it's a pause in implementation, and there's discussions going on. What we're here tonight to do is to check with council to see if you would like to send a letter to King County. And again, it's not a perfect match to the council priority of a circulator bus system, but certainly this first mile, last mile program is something that at least contributes closely to that goal. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Steve Murakawa, who's been monitoring the situation, and his team has been in communication on the back end to see what our options are and to share a bit of the draft and get your feedback on what would make it yours. And then tonight, we don't normally have action on council or city manager report items, but for tonight, we would love direction or concurrence on whether or not you'd like a letter or if we'd put it on our watch list. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Steve.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. So again, no action is really required, but we would like some direction. This brief provides the council with the opportunity to weigh in on whether to send a letter to King County Metro regarding the current Metro Flex Zone. I have really one slide. So the southern portion of Bothell is fortunate to currently be included in King County's Metro's MetroFlex Juanita Response Zone. So MetroFlex is an on-demand transit service that provides rides within multiple King County neighborhoods, of which one of them is the Juanita Zone. It uses minivans, and the rides are booked via phone or an application. It's on demand. It cannot be reserved in advance. So the map on the screen shows the Juanita Response Zone, and it's kind of a heat map showing the usage over the previous quarter. And you can note that the zone covers areas of Kirkland, Kenmore, as well as a portion of Bothell. So unfortunately, the King County Metro is considering termination of this zone. It's kind of like a pilot program, and it's not quite meeting the target performance scores. Kirkland, the city of Kirkland has already sent a letter to King County Metro expressing a desire to discuss this further prior to King County Metro making a final decision. So this briefing actually provides the council the opportunity to weigh in on whether to send a similar letter to King County Metro. And a drafted letter was provided with your packet. So that's kind of all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Councilmember Zorns?
I don't have any questions, and maybe I should. But yes, I do support us writing a letter as well, because I think King County Metro needs to be giving this portion of Lake Washington, northern Lake Washington, attention for transportation needs that are every bit as legitimate as other parts of their service area. So, yes, I would like to see a letter go that supports keeping it in the framework that they've got going right now, because those are bones that Bothell could possibly build on later down the road.
Councilmember Alders?
Yeah, I count me as someone who I probably have heard of this before, but I've never been able to figure out how to use it. And so I'd really love to see the pilot extended so that more people can be informed about it and be able to utilize it. So really support this letter. I think it's well written, and the draft looks really good. So thank you.
Councilmember Dodd?
Thanks. I also support sending the letter. I don't think the pilot has run long enough to really show the value, and this area does not have the best other transit options. So I support sending the letter. Thanks.
Councilmember Curd?
Thanks. Thanks for the presentation and for bringing this up and flagging it. I also would support writing this letter. I think it's well worded. I was talking with some folks on Riverside last week, and they were saying to me that, I can't take the bus to my appointments at Evergreen Hospital because the bus doesn't drop me off close enough, and I can't do that. And I suggested this MetroFlex, and they had not heard of it. And if that that kind of suggests to me that maybe there hasn't been enough outreach to the communities that are impacted by the service, because it is a pretty simple way to get to to Totem Lake from downtown Bothell and areas south. So I would also encourage just going beyond the letter, keeping this kind of keeping us updated on other opportunities to weigh in if there are, whether this is a decision that gets carried on up through King County Council or Metro, I'd like to stay apprised. Thank you.
Oh, Councilmember Mankey.
Thank you, Mayor. I support it as well for the reasons that others have already stated.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. I don't think it ran long enough. I think there were a couple of things. I tried to use it actually, and couldn't because we got used to Uber and the almost instantaneous response times, and that didn't work for me for my use cases at the time. So I think extending it, having conversation around how we can improve the user experience, as well as giving, because there obviously a lot of people haven't heard of it even. So having conversation around better marketing and maybe partnerships with us as a city or the cities in this pilot to better market this to our residents. And maybe expanding to the full city of Bothell, not just the King County or even the southern King County portion of Bothell.
Yeah, I'm very in support of this as well. And I was thinking the same thing. I'm actually not in the zone for it where I am. It seems like if we took it up 124th, like all the way up to 522, like we could get a whole lot more of Bothell in there. And I don't know if that's probably something that would be, if they want to have the conversation, then we could talk about that rather than right now. But yeah, I would love to have the conversation about how we could, and how we as a city could help make this more of a success for Metro as well. If it's something that we can help with communications on, and use, because it's the kind of service that really gets at solving that first mile, last mile problem that I know we spend a lot of energy on, and it would be sad to see something like that go away.
Well, thank you. I think we got a clear direction on that, and we will, hope for engagement with King County Metro, and we will keep the council and the community informed of what we're learning. So more to come on this one. Thank you, Steve. Mayor, that concludes the city manager report for tonight. Thank you.
Moving on to council committee reports, community reports, and conversations. Councilmember Dodd is ready to go.
I know. Inspired by that last talk, I wanted to, this is something that I've heard about a lot as through the Snohomish County Transportation Coalition. Ironically, I'm going to talk about a Metro program, which is King County, but they've come to talk to SnowTrack too. HopeLink has mobility coordinators that will talk to folks, and they especially are good at working with folks who are trying to manage transit with a disability or low-income riders. So if you run into somebody who needs help planning a bus route, that's a great option. And if you want to know more, feel free to ask me, because this is just a quick overview, but I wanted to make sure we all knew how to connect people with those resources.
Councilmember Aldrich?
Yep. I believe I have been tasked with the update that's in our agenda regarding RACER, the Regional Crisis Response Agency. The Principals Assembly met last week, and since the program has become more established, we're now moving to meeting once a year. So this is this is my yearly update. The first one you're gonna get. And it was a really great meeting. Brooke Bittner has been very responsive to the committee in our requests to hear from the lived experiences of people who have worked with or received support from the program, and it's always my favorite part of the meeting. We got some really great updates around the annual report, which you have in your packet, so you can see all the annual report information. And we also were able to hear a presentation from Connections Health Solutions, who runs the crisis response or the crisis stabilization center in Kirkland. That they then offered to visit cities and give an update. So my question to the council is there interest in having Connections come and present to us so that we can hear about their services and how they're supporting residents in Bothell? I see thumbs up and head nods. Cool. and our city manager will get that scheduled.
We will get on it.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions, but you have a lot of information in your packet that will have the answers. Thank you.
I just want to add thank you for the information. That was really interesting to go through.
Can thank city manager for making that happen.
All right, we'll move on to projected agenda discussion.
Can I have a point of privilege when it comes to the conversation part of council conversations?
Oh, yeah.
Like, before we move on?
Yeah.
I was really grateful to have everyone who showed up today from the disability community to celebrate Disability Pride Month. And what I really wanted to say before they all took off was that, like, our kids are the people they serve. Like, our families are the people they serve. And I just really appreciate their presence in our community and their contributions to our community. And I'm knowing especially that my kids are healthier, happier, and experience greater well-being because we have dedicated and very kind, loving professionals. So if they hear this, there's much appreciation coming from me up here. Thank you.
I'll go one step farther, and not just our kids, but some of us. And I thought about bringing that up, but I didn't want to like make it about us when we were doing a proclamation for them. So I was going back and forth on how to do that. So yeah, if you're watching, just know we appreciate you. And in many cases, we are you. So we're glad you're here.
Yeah, and I'll jump in and just say that our kids are really benefiting in ways that previous generations, like even their parents, us, didn't benefit from, of having support services that are, embedded in schools and are part of our communities. And it's really awesome to see this generation of students and children, I think, get better support than previous generations.
I just want to add, yes, there's better support, but we still have a long ways to go. I started in the special ed field a few decades ago, and we've moved the needle, but we've got a lot more work to do. So this is an important piece of taking pride of our members of our community who are full members of the community that in the past have just been looked past.
All right, now I'll move back on to projected agenda discussion. Seeing none, I would love.
I'm actually very tempted to make this. This is a next year request.
Okay.
But I would like to get it on the record from council members. Would you all be interested in a conversation around displaying the disability pride flag around our community? We have Pride Month in June, but then there's Disability Pride Month in July. There's a whole flag for it. We could fly that flag in the city of Bothell, and if you are interested, then that could be a projected agenda item for 2026.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes, to answer your question, Councilmember Alders. I said this during a study session quite a while ago, but we are at a really cool nexus in Bothell. We have Sorensen Early Childhood Center. We are served by Kindering, by Child's Drive. The Alyssa Burnett Center is here. We're very commutable to Seattle Children's. And I know for my parents, they picked Bothell for all of those things when my brother needed early intervention. And it came in very, very important. And I don't want to say convenient. It was essential when my son was little. So just like you guys had talked about your families, like I think that we have a huge community here who would both appreciate that and who would benefit from more people being aware that they're here.
Councilmember Curd?
Sure, I'll put my name in as a third.
I'll go as a fourth. I think that sounds lovely. I don't have anything quite as eloquent to say.
Thank you. We'll put it on the work plan for next year and bring back some more information.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager, for entertaining a request so far out.
It's strangely the second half of the year now, so maybe it's not as far as it feels.
Ooh, that hit hard. All right, I would love to accept a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councilmember Dodd?
I'd like to move that we approve the consent agenda.
What a coincidence. I have a motion from Councilmember Dodd and a second from Councilmember Curd to approve the consent agenda. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none. City Clerk?
Thank you. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Councilmember Zorns?
Yes.
Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Alders?
Yes.
Councilmember Curd?
Yes.
Councilmember Menke?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Connor?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
All right. Next up, we have a study session down there. All right. Next up, we have Agenda Bill 25119 for Transportation Impact Fee Update. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, this is the first of 2 study sessions tonight, and it's a continuing conversation. So some of this is going to feel familiar to you. I was talking to our deputy director before the meeting, and this is my accountability moment of I owe a few of you, and I will send it to all of you, an update about our first protected bike lane that's being built in Bothell. And I know some of you have seen it, and there's pictures floating around, and it's all good news. And so putting it into context, we're having this continued discussion about how do we pay for these types of infrastructure updates? Is it the city? Is there development that pays for it? So with frontage improvements, but in this case, transportation impact fees, how does that all relate into it? And but what's the right level? How do we look at things? So again, it's kind of turning over the rocks and figuring out what are we going to do. So staff has been doing some research, and we're joined tonight by Steve Morikawa again, but lead presenter tonight is Boyd Benson, our Utilities Development Services Manager, and also Carmen Kwan is back with us from Fair and Piers. So welcome, and with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Outstanding, thank you. As City Manager mentioned, this will be a pretty high-level overview, but we definitely have time for questions. So tonight, no action is being requested. We are seeking input, though, on some questions that were brought forward to Planning Commission on May 23rd that will help us understand council direction policy on our transportation impact fee update process. So the 2 key questions we have are about how we apply rates within the city. So the first one is, should we consider impact fee rates that vary with respect to geographical areas within the city? And this was discussed with Planning Commission, and at that time they recommended this may be a good thing to look at. And also, should we look at the feasibility of reduced impact fees for affordable housing citywide? And this was also discussed with Planning Commission. And a bit of background on this, currently the city of Bothell, we do look at transportation impact fees throughout the city in the same fashion. And that's because typically growth has the same impacts in certain areas if you look at a program holistically. And one of the benefits of that is we can use those funds anywhere within the city. We do have area-specific reduced transportation impact fees, and that's something council looked at 2019, and that's for the downtown area where there are significant bypass trips. Someone may go to somewhere downtown, but hit hit multiple destinations, so that can be reflected in the fees. And the other one is respect with affordable housing incentives. It's a goal of the 2024 comp plan, and we're here to help look at that. So where are we today? So we mentioned the 2019 impact fee update. We did come back to council in 2023. City of Bothell was kind of ahead of the curve looking at impact fees and rates. We're now kind of seeing some of that stuff even dribble by with utilities. That's not a good way to say it. We're seeing utilities now even discussing this because they're effective June of this last year. We came to Planning Commission. We've basically done the groundwork for the impact fees. We're not generating numbers at this time. So we came to Planning Commission to discuss the process, ask those same two questions, and receive feedback. And then tonight we're here to get your feedback. After this, you'll see us back in the fall with preliminary results, real numbers. We'll get that discussed with council, then come back to discuss again and have a public hearing. And then the plan is to adopt to be effective January 1, 2026. This works well. And I may be jumping ahead, I'm trying not to, but we're also looking at how we apply concurrency, and we'll talk about that. Actually, Carmen will talk about impact fees.
Thanks, Boyd. So what are transportation impact fees? They're a method for paying for infrastructure needed to accommodate growth in the city and to meet concurrency standards. Impact fees are one-time charges paid by new developments. They assist in completing capacity-increasing projects to mitigate impacts. So therefore, growth pays for growth in the city. The fee paid by development need to be proportional to the growth-related impacts they will cause, and they can only be collected and used for projects identified in the impact fee study. So on the screen here, I have the general flow of how we calculate an impact fee rate for a city. First, we have a transportation project list, and so this will be a subset of projects identified in the transportation element. We will go through a review of those projects to identify what portion will serve new growth. We will then divide it by the total of new trips expected within the city to get a cost per person trip. We then can apply reductions to that impact fee depending on direction from the city, and then that will help develop the impact fee schedule. On the bottom half of the slide here, you can see just the ballpark numbers from the city's current impact fee rate study. Where it's $61 million worth of eligible project costs divided by 6,000 trips, and that's about $10,000 per person trip. If you recall from the transportation element update, there was an extensive discussion about going multimodal because a trip is a trip. And so by having a multimodal impact fee rate, funds have a stronger nexus and can be used to fund multimodal projects.
And just to add to this one a bit, we've already had developers come in and say, oh, great, you're going multimodal, and I'm not providing parking, so I won't be paying anything. And the answer is, that's not how this works. If you look at our project list in the 2024 comp plan, transportation element of the 2024 comprehensive plan, the majority of those are multimodal projects. They are some big costs. So when we think about the reason we really wanted to stress a trip is still a trip is if someone chooses not to provide parking in their dwelling, that means they'll be relying on bicycles and peds. And the city must, in accordance with the comp plan, we are to mitigate impacts from that type of a development. So once again, we're already hearing developers saying, great, bike is free and a ped is free. And the answer is, well, you know what? Yeah, and when you think about capacity projects for vehicles, it's not always that challenging to add another lane. When you think about adding really cool things like separated bike lanes and the rest, where you're widening the roadway, it can cost quite a bit. So we're really trying to reinforce that message that, one, we must collect revenue to offset the impacts from growth, and that's the comp plan list of projects, and two, we need to make it fair, but three, we also need to acknowledge that even though we're going multimodal, that there'll still be fees to be paid.
And here's the current impact fee rate for a single family home. So Bothell runs in the middle of a pack of some example peer jurisdictions with about $12,000 per PM peak hour trip, And then we've also, as a comparison, show the impact fee for a multifamily unit. So Bothell's about a little under 6,000 compared to peer jurisdictions.
So let's talk a bit about impact fees and what they fund. So when the comprehensive plan was adopted with the transportation element with a 20-year plan, Mr. Morikawa did quite a bit of work to generate what the potential costs were and estimate those costs. There's quite a bit of work as well to understand the revenue sources. So this is a summary table that shows over the 20-year, we're looking about $850 million. When you start really diving into this, a good portion, almost 70%, is grants and others. And those are things that must be secured. Then you start looking at transportation impact fees, it's at 12%. Now that may not seem like a large number, but it represents the seed money to be able to do planning and permitting. It represents the work to do the feasibility. So we're eligible for grants. So when we go, we can say, look at all this good work we did. And it also does represent the fair share, at least based on the estimates from the past, of what we might expect that development pays for their share of the work to get this project list done. What else? I think that's it. Okay, so we're already to the questions. There's a few more slides that kind of describe things a bit, but the first one is, should Bothell consider impact fee rates that vary by area in the city? We've already mentioned that in 2019, we recognized that some uses in the downtown area have more pass-by trips, maybe there's more transit. When we start looking at current regulations with respect to some allowances within a quarter mile of rapid transit, that's already there for middle housing and the rest, and future impact fee, and some existing impact fee legislation. The question that came up is, look, there's already a walk shed within BRT routes. Are we going to see different type of impacts that may or may not have already been mitigated by transit within a quarter mile? And the answer, maybe yes. We'll probably see higher densities, more people taking transit, or at least the potential to take transit, as opposed to general areas within the city. So that was the first one. If you look at this map, it encompasses good areas of the regional growth center. So the first topic for discussion with council this evening is, would you like to have staff look at citywide uniform impact fee rates or impact fee rates that may reflect different uses, such as if you're within a quarter mile of the rapid transit corridor?
Are we going to talk about that now before we go on to the rest of the presentation? I will say yes, and I wouldn't mind seeing that bumped out to half mile. Like if you look up in Canyon Park between the urban growth areas, there's this little segment that there's not there, and like if somebody's right outside of there and they're like a third of the mile from, like that doesn't, it doesn't make sense.
May I give you just a bit of things to think about?
Please.
Okay, when we think about it, that's very good, and this could be smoothed out. We also have to remember, for every reduction we give in a greater area, we still have to get that project list done. So one of the messages, I'm just saying that I really wanted to make it, really stress the point that we should be balancing these things.
No, and I hear that, but also like we know that the more costly it is to develop, the less development we will see. So like I think the higher our impact fees, the fewer overall projects we will see, and we get no impact fees from a project that doesn't get done. So there's balance in that way too.
A variation of that. On my hill, there's already talk of turning 2 properties into a 6-plex. And I know that they're not worried about impact fees because it's going to be a great project that's going to garner them a lot of funding. And in the back of my mind is we still have other projects that are going to move the density around Bothell that we need to be able to fund. And so I want to be very careful about where we put reduction of fees. Now, where I can see it being a challenge is for an ADU that's joined up with a on a single family lot. Yes, let's have a conversation about making it easier for them to do that. But for people who are coming in, putting multiplexes in, I'm not as concerned because they've got big plans. But for the smaller, on the small scale for ADUs, yes, a reduction. Let's have that conversation.
Thank you. I hope it's okay to interact like this, but what I'm hearing is balance things and try to focus where we can get more affordable units. And part of that's coming with the affordability section, the next question, because I really think it's important. The two comments we've heard is to make sure that, one, growth pays for growth, but two, acknowledge that some uses may have less impact and some uses we may want to incentivize to get the greater development within a corridor. Like you were saying, if we want to get the more development within a half mile or a quarter mile of the rapid transit, then, or the, yeah.
I'd like to look at this. Maybe we can have some options with the trade-offs presented. I have to think that, like, to use the example just given, a sixplex near frequent transit, well-served, is better than a sixplex out by Canyon Creek where there's no bus. So I would like to see that development where it makes sense and where people can take advantage of the infrastructure we do have while acknowledging that we have a lot to catch up on too.
I'm going to start with the hard question first. I'm guessing that since we've done this already in one part of the city, we know this is legally defensible to do that, and we can, if we have good reasons for doing different impact fees in different areas, we can do that.
Most definitely, and to kind of add to that, part of this is what Carmen will do with Fair and Peers is, just like with downtown, there may be a technical explanation of why the fees can be slightly lower, and we're not saying that they're half, right? We reduce these on Main Street by a fraction, but it still promotes the growth, and it still acknowledges that they may be using other existing sources of like transportation, like transit, right? So they may not need all the sidewalks and roads. So it's definitely defensible.
Okay, great. That was my initial question with that. In terms of ADUs and DADUs, are those considered multifamily for the terms of setting fees, or are they some other classification that wasn't presented with the single family, multifamily?
We've got a really good slide coming up.
Okay, cool. I'll wait for that one then. I think, like Councilmember Dodd, I'd like to see like a mix of options. It helps like frame it up and understand what are the trade-offs that we're potentially looking at here. I'm not like blanket opposed to the idea. I'm just thinking about a couple areas within town, Red Barn Village or now Midtown specifically, right off what's going to be rapid transit as soon as the Swift line extends down, but very underdeveloped, in need of those project funds. So if we were to lower the fees for that area because it's close to transit, it's actually one of the areas that's going to need money for development. So I think we need to think about that as we're considering how to approach this.
Thanks for the presentation so far. I knew that this conversation was coming when we did the implementation element of the comp plan, and here we are. I think one of the approaches that I am looking at is reducing complexity from kind of an expectation when you're planning a development project. And so having different kind of growth centers that a project would have to identify first in order to see whether they meet the requirements for reduced. That just is like another layer of complexity for building, and that's something that I really want to try and avoid usually. That being said, Canyon Park has not grown the way that we have expected it to, and we need to encourage development in Canyon Park. And so this is one of the tools in our toolbox to help encourage more flexible and neighborhood development there. Then I think that's a tool in our toolbox, and we can explore it. So I'll be looking for more information. As far as impact fee, like one of the questions that I have is about commercial impact fees too. Is that something that you're really looking at now or just strictly residential?
It'll all be looked at.
Okay.
Right now, we're mostly discussing residential because it's
easy
more
to
the
compare.
affordability rate.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's next.
Okay. I will await more information. Thank you.
Thank you. This is fascinating. I like to look at bar graphs, the bar graphs that you have. I had a question about when you compared us against the different cities. Bellevue was always at the bottom. Why is that? Why do they collect the least amount of fees? Because it's Bellevue.
I said, what's up with Bellevue?
Yeah, what's up with Bellevue?
We can follow up on that. I actually, I don't know the answer. We can look into that. But sometimes it's economies of scale, right? They're a much larger city, and maybe they'll leverage, and they have growth. But we'll look into that and we'll follow up.
I'm just curious, yeah. The point of a trip is a trip. You showed us I'm sure it's a very simplified version of the equation that is used to. Is that going to? I assume that's going to change to add more variables to accommodate for biking versus walking versus scooter, or I don't know. I'm asking. Is that going to change?
Were you talking about the equation to calculate an
Yeah.
impact fee? Okay, so that's the general process that we'll follow, and we will update it with the latest project list that we will work with city staff to identify the latest costs, and then also looking at the projected person trip growth in the city. So all of that information will be updated this time around.
And that will be brought back when we have the other discussion, because I agree, we need to have them. It seems like there's more information that we need. Because it might be counterintuitive to, like Canyon Park, for example, to increase the lowering of impact fees, but we do need to encourage development also at the same time. So where's that balance? And then you have the Red Barn, where you do need a lot of, it's going to be right next to rapid transit at some point, but then you still need to spend a lot of money to build up that area. So where does that balance?
Yeah, so the goal of this right now is just to get feedback.
Yeah,
and support.
I get it.
And I
These
know,
questions.
when I say this stuff, I please take it the right way. But we already have a draft project list. We already have costs. Once we take these components then, based on what you're providing, which I've heard a couple things, is balance, look at expanding areas, come back with some options. That's when we come back with the math, because the policy work is what sets the frame for this. What Carmen and Fair and Pierce will do when they run the model, you guys will hopefully never see. You'll see that $100 million project, 20 million's TIF eligible, and you'll see that. And then you'll see all the rest. And then with what the feedback here, we're not saying it's going to be 6 different scenarios, but definitely here, and we can address that. And when I discuss it, the math, to me, this is very simple math. The hard math is the backup. The work that Carmen's doing with the model and the rest, and to get that all documented. This is policy level, and it's not that challenging to adjust things, in my opinion. But I see things very simply.
Me too. That's why you hire the experts to do the difficult work, So, one last question I have, which is, to me, it was a flag, but I don't know how big of a flag it is. The table that showed the breakdown of where the money comes from. A lot of money comes from the federal grants. And the question I have is, are we going to have issues, or is everything on track? I know, speaking of policy questions.
I think we're, like every other agency, I think we're not sure. At the moment, we're kind of on halt with some of our grants. Most of the money we've received so far are through, they're kind of like have a process-oriented grants, and they've been competitive and everything. And if you've already gotten the money and obligated, you're good to go. So like most of our funding right now, knock on wood, like RAISE grants, all our STB grants, everything that's a lot of money tied up in the Bothell Way multimodal project, those seem to be okay. The bridge grant, unfortunately, we didn't have time to obligate it before we got the rug yanked out, so we're just waiting on that. So yes, I think right now, some of that is in question. But, you know, we just adopted the plan, so we should probably go forth and see what we can do. And
Do you think then we need to adjust how we look at transportation impact fees at a more micro level if the macro, no, we just continue as planned, and then if things change, we just deal with it when it comes?
I think with the transportation impact fee, you saw, I was pretty, it's about 12% of the total cost.
yeah.
It's not a huge cost. The reason it's very important is because we do need to provide matches for most of our grants. So for every dollar you take away from the TIF, you're going to get a couple dollars less of grant money. So it kind of builds on itself. I think the other way that I would recommend looking at it as we go down the road is if we're not getting the income we think we are, potentially we may have to adjust the project list. I don't think you're ever going to get the TIF high enough to make up that difference, I guess. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I know we just talked about not doing math questions, but I have a math question. For the Bothell Way multimodal project, are we depending upon future impact fees for any of those stages? We are still. Okay. I was curious about that when it came up a few times. And that was my question. Thank you.
Before we move on from question one about the differing areas of the city and changing impact fee rates by sub-area, I want to talk a little bit about Sound Transit's paradigm of sub-area equity, which I think this could be kind of a dangerous path toward that. Dollars collected in North King County for Sound Transit have to be used in North King County. Dollars collected in South King County have to be used in South King County. And that makes it really difficult to have a full network, interconnected network of projects move forward at the same time. And here I'm worried that if we start cutting the city into different areas, it would be easier from a policy standpoint to say, oh, well, Canyon Park is adding so much money through transportation impact fees, they should get, their projects should be done faster. And that's something that I really want to avoid. And I'm worried seeing this slide, how that might kind of, the conversations in the future about progress on different projects in the list.
Yeah, so we can touch on that briefly. But the good news with the city of Bothell is that we look at the program holistically. So we're small enough still where we don't have to look like Bellevue actually has different impact fees for different areas. We're not doing that. If council is interested in varying by city, this isn't 6 different variations. This is probably a quarter mile or half mile, whatever it is along a corridor, because we can technically demonstrate there's less burden from the. So I understand what you're saying in here, but I don't think that will be an issue with how the city's approaching the impact fee process.
Thank you.
I have a question. I had actually a few more questions, and I didn't get through all of them at the first. It's interesting to me that like we just went through a comp plan with this whole big exercise of like where specifically we want to put growth. And now it seems really arbitrary to pick like a distance from bus stops that we didn't put up to do impact fees. Is there any way we can do impact fees by zoning designation?
It's a really good question, but then that really gets into what Councilmember Kurd was saying. We're taking these areas from dollars from these zones and we should be applying the projects to those. And I hear what you're saying, and the reason we keep throwing the quarter mile is even House Bill 1491, which has the multifamily tax exemption, which has that. So it's almost, we're going to be, the cities, there's legislation that will require some of these reductions, a 50% reduction for MFTE within a quarter mile. So we're kind of piggybacking on that. And once again, this is just a general question. Are you interested in one uniform rate or maybe something that's slightly different along a corridor? But I hear
but we only have so many touches to like bring up ideas and talk about this. So
No,
like,
I agree. Yeah.
Like So I thought what Councilmember Curd said was he didn't want to see that like area equity like built in. So like I'm not sure how we raise the revenue affects that. Could you help me understand?
For sure. So if, let's say we're looking at projects on an existing transit route, we can technically demonstrate that more of those trips will use transit and less peds and bikes, so that the fee itself can be lower because they're already mitigated by the transit. So it's a little separate than trying to incentivize or looking at zone. Yeah, it's just like with downtown, we think there's more walking pass by trips than the rest. So we can technically, I hope I'm answering your question, sir. We can technically justify that on average, if a development is near a transit facility, there'll be more trips that go to transit and less to bike and ped.
So you're saying that if we did it based on the zoning or the land use designations, not the zoning designations, that we wouldn't be able to, like, are you saying that wouldn't be legal? Like, would we not be able to do that?
It's not even, it's a good question. It's not being legal. It's, do we have the technical basis to say that all RM1s anywhere in the city generate less trips? And the answer may be hard to defend.
Well, why do we need a technical reason? Why do we need to technically demonstrate it?
Oh, it's a good question. So as part of this, as Carmen mentioned at the start of this in the presentation, is to actually be able to charge transportation impact fees. We have to follow RCW. We have to have a defensible study. And if
so make it legal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. When I hear legal, I think
would it not be legal, or would it not be following those RCWs to do it based on zoning designation?
Most likely not.
Okay.
And when I say this, and I'm not answering for legal, it has to be a defensible study. So it's very easy to defend if there's a transit stop nearby, with no matter what your zoning is. There's more likely, there's a higher potential to use transit and less bike ped vehicles, as opposed to, I think anything that's this zoning in the city generates fewer trips. And
are we worried about being legally challenged for reducing fees?
Mayor.
I guess where would that come from? I don't understand.
So I think these questions are more appropriately addressed offline through an attorney-client privileged memo. Just when you guys start asking when are things legal, we need to, that's not inappropriate for open session. So, but we can get you those answers.
I guess I would like to know if something that builds on the work we've already done is an option for us. A couple other ideas. And is there a way for like infill and multifamily projects that we could look at impact fees by parking space rather than by housing type or unit?
We could do that, but once again, what we're saying then is if they're not having parking spaces or vehicles, then they're using bike or ped. And I have a real good slide coming up that kind of shows the different type of housing types if you'd like to see that. So what we'd say then is if it's based on parking spaces, let's say you have 0 parking spaces, you have 0 impact fee. That means we're not collecting funds to do the bike and ped improvements needed to mitigate your impact. So it's
yeah, but if somebody's not building parking, then they're probably going to be building more housing there, and we'll be getting more tax revenue over time. And like ongoing revenue seems better than one-time revenue to me. Like all of the software companies that folks work for around here are moving toward like a subscription model because they recognize that ongoing revenue is a lot better than one-time revenue. It seems financially short-sighted to base all of this based like on a financial argument for it when I'm not convinced that's the best long-term financial thing for the city.
Okay. And then the way this is structured, I'm trying to answer your question, is to mitigate impacts, we can collect fees.
Mm-hmm.
When you saw that table, there is REIT in there. Mm-hmm. It's a chunk. There are other revenue sources.
Yeah.
And those will be the ongoing, but the choice then is, do you want to have the new development, which is causing the impact, pay their fair share impact fee and mitigate their impacts, or do you want to use other general fund or other taxes to come in and do that? And it's typically looked at as and this is how the comp plan of the RCW does. I'm not saying the city has a responsibility, but if you want to, the city has a right to charge fees to mitigate impacts, and it's not a huge percent. Mm-hmm. And what I'd really like to do, if it's okay, is show you a slide that shows the different housing types to see because when you see $12,000, that's a huge number. And when you see that the
No,
factors
it's like 5,900 or something for multifamily, and like I know that it's smaller.
I do think it would be helpful to, instead of asking these as two separate questions, I think they're really related. So I think pausing here does create some confusion. It might be good to go ahead and get into the second one, and we're not leaving the topic, but before we continue the discussion on just question one, let's have you introduce. We've now referenced question two several times. I think let's try and get to that and then bring them both together. If you need to continue the thought, though,
I have just one more thing that I want to say is like the idea that we need growth to pay for growth is something that I just have a fundamental issue with, because I think growth is good and I think growth is something that we want. And like, we know our community wants more housing. Growth gives us more ongoing revenue. Like, it does a whole bunch of good things. And like, yes, we want to be able to fund transportation improvements alongside of that. Like, it just seems like we're really over indexing on the one-time funds and making the financial argument. And that's like the whole underpinning of this. And like, we know that those one-time funds are going to result in fewer things getting built. And those things getting built are good things that do good things for us financially and for the people. So I guess as you can probably tell, like, impact fees rub me the wrong way a little bit. Like, I feel like it's a sign of a broken financial system, which we have, and we have to like live in the reality that we have, not what we want. But anyway, I just needed to get the growth piece for growth thing off my chest.
Is there a different model we can use to, like, because it sounds like the formula is based on the concept, the paradigm is the goal is to have more growth. But this one is adding cost to growth. Is there a different way that we can look at funding in a longer term than a one-time fee? For example, just something to think about.
So we've had conversations about the financial tools in your toolbox, and so it's limited, right? There isn't something we're constrained based on what's allowed. So there isn't something out there that we're not doing that would offset this. I mean, I think there is an exercise we could go through. I think again, getting direction tonight helps bring back the data that was being discussed. But to your point of like, then what do the out year projections look like? Because we know, again, property taxes capped in Washington State at 1%, so it only grows by 1%. So that's a predictable flat rate, that sort of a thing. So I mean, we can put some of those cost models together and show what the impact is. I don't know though that we could trade like one thing for another though, because there's not, unless it's part of the legislative agenda to go to.
That's what I was going to ask next. It could be a legislative.
It doesn't necessarily exist today. So then being able to count on it, that there's a risky proposition.
Cool. The other thing that I would ask, is there a way we can do some kind of hybrid? Like, because I think we would all agree that when somebody walks down the street, there's less of an impact that needs to be mitigated than when somebody gets in their car and drives somewhere. Like, so is there a way to have like a flat fee that is smaller and then a fee per parking space on top of that? Like, is there a way to get to the same answer that funds our multimodal dreams and our projects, that is more in line with the values that we want to see, where we don't want to use this as a tool that prevents new growth?
That's what I was thinking of while you were talking, is I don't think it would be zero without parking. But if you are building a 2-bedroom house with a 3-car garage, like, and you're going to, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to stock that with cars or whatever, like, that might have more of a fee. I don't know how that works with how we calculate it and defend it and all that stuff. But I do think there could be flexibility, but it also, Deputy Mayor, you gave me a lot of thought, just because like the only way that we can fund stuff otherwise goes up 1% every year, no matter how much the cost of things go up. So it's kind of
I'll tell you the story about when I had a next door neighbor with a 2-car garage and 12 cars. But I think, Boyd, if we can go to question 2, I think that'll be helpful.
Most definitely.
Can I have a turn before we do that though?
We'll come back. But I think we're bleeding too much into both concepts.
Sure.
So let's just get them both on the table and then look at the questions together.
I'm sorry. So and once again, I hear what you're saying. So our impact fee structure is already structured to understand that different types and different uses and different sizes have different impacts and they have different fees. So when we start talking about affordability, it's already baked into our transportation impact fee schedule. when you look at this up here, it's pretty apparent. An ADU or senior, it typically have less of an impact than a single family detached. And so I just really wanted to bring that forward. So there are tools to address affordability in some, like House Bill 1491 with the 50% reduction for multifamily tax exemptions there, but it's already baked into the system. And as part of this update, Fair and Peers will look at this closely for all uses. And it may be that the uses get defined a bit more, because I'll tell you right now, we don't have any ADUs that look like the single family detached, but it's been close a couple times. Some of these ADUs are quite large. And when we get back to even like the utility conversation we had, you know, it's a water meter, and the home on the right has a much higher impact with respect to peak flows and volumes than the potential for the one on the left. And it's the same with transportation. So we just kind of wanted to set the table with that. And the reason why multifamily is so important here is we're starting to see a line blur between duplexes and townhomes and middle housing and the rest. So I think it's really in the detailed understanding of what's that really mean, because someone's townhome today could be a detached or attached single family fee simple property the next day with a zero lot line subdivision.
Thank you, Boyd. If you could go to maybe slide 18 that has.
Oh, it's back. It's back. We can pass it around. I have too many questions. I know. I was wondering if it was a battery thing. Yeah. Go for it. No, you can continue. This is like, let's keep going. But I can pass the mic around to whoever needs it. I'll wait until we're looking at both questions.
Yeah, so this is a summary of both questions. It's the same questions we saw at the start, but should we investigate the feasibility of reduced impact fees or for affordability? And what I've mentioned is some of this is already baked into our impact fee schedule. Some is legislative that's already being stated that you will reduce impact fees by 50% for multifamily tax exemptions within that quarter mile. So some of these things are kind of stacking on top of each other. And that's why when we talk about some of these approaches, we want to keep things simple. We want to keep things fair. We want to promote growth. And there's a couple ways to kind of stack these up. Because I will tell you right now, I'm just going to put it in water utility terms. We don't have to charge facility charges to new development. But that means ratepayers will pay those fees. So we don't necessarily have to charge impact fees, but that means the funds that come in for other general fund expenses will pay those fees. So what we've done in the past is try to find an equitable, defensible approach to show, let's try to keep things reasonable, let's try to keep things fair, let's be good stewards. And the approach we're discussing now is generally accepted within Washington State. It's what cities do. They model what these new projects will do to add capacity. And it may only be 10% on a project. And that's the part that they can dump into the bucket to charge as impact fee for those trips. So that's where we're trying to go. And I know you had a question, but you said say something, so I said something.
Well, thank you. Now that the technology seems to be working. I'm wondering if it might be helpful to have like a case study of recent development, so we see how much was generated in impact fees, and then how was that able to be put into use. And I'm gonna pick on Urbane Village as an example of that, because I won't say that. But
was it a big change of use?
It was a big change of use, and I've even gotten that almost that exact question from members of the community of like, how is development paying for infrastructure investments? And the answer is impact fees are part of the answer, are part of that. And then what, when we're talking about what are the needs of the roadways around there to be able to absorb that new traffic and the new residents. And so I'm wondering if that might be a useful case study for us to, I think, understand
how these pieces fit together. Cool. Thank you.
Oh, no, I still haven't been able to get through my stuff yet. Councilmember, I was going to bring up change of use impact fees as well. And like, I think that's something we really need to take a look at. Like we know that it's prevented things that would make Main Street more lively from happening in the past. And like, again, I don't want impact fees to prevent good things from happening. And we know for a fact that that does happen. Like we have actual examples here in Bothell. So could we look at what getting rid of change of use impact fees for at least smaller stuff is? Like, and I don't know how big it is. Well,
I pointed. I didn't mean to point. I just pointed, and you looked. But we're talking about transportation, or is this only transportation impact fees or general impact?
Change of use triggers transportation impact fees.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't know when else we're going to talk about it.
And we can bring that forward. And
Okay.
I just want to give you something to think about.
Yeah.
We did have a project coming on Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first question to think of, it was a really cool project. We're all very excited about it. Now, City Council has a goal for more housing, more affordable housing, all these different things in dense development, let's say within downtown. So was that the highest and best use? It may not have been. It did prevent that from coming in, as opposed if you look at the bank, 102nd and Main. I'm not saying it's everyone's favorite project, but that's bringing in, I think, 99 apartments.
Yeah.
So it's a balance, because it may be that if there's an existing manufacturing company and they want to do something else, and what we can do is fairly say, okay, you had this impact, now you have this impact, you pay the difference. And it's a very clear way to demonstrate that what they're doing is being mitigated. So when you start exempting certain changes of use, you may not have that in your back pocket to be able to say, I'm treating everyone fairly, because someone's pizza parlor and pinball arcade, which is the coolest thing ever, maybe someone else's apartment project, right? That's actually going to be the highest and best use. So it's a really, I'm getting the weeds and I'm not supposed to.
But
it's a real balance.
Wouldn't we have an impact fee for the new like housing units that went in that case? Like
we did.
Okay, but we wouldn't necessarily need a change of use transportation impact fee because we have the housing units impact fee? Or like
what I'm saying is one person's I'm going to turn something in from this to a pizza parlor and pinball.
Yeah.
Could be someone else's, I'm going to turn this into housing.
So can we do like, so you're saying like the opportunity cost of like, if we didn't do this thing, what else could happen kind of a thing? I mean, the idea that we have to, like, if somebody changes a building so that it's more utilized and more people come there and more people enjoy it, that is something we have to mitigate, I just don't buy that. Like, if somebody's taking the same building and like adding a couple like walls in it to make it 3 different units and have 3 different businesses and more people will come to Bothell and enjoy that, like, I want that to happen. Like, I don't want impact fees for like because of change of use to keep that from happening. Like, I think that's a goal, not something we need to mitigate.
I will join the mayor on this one, specifically for Main Street and places like it. I think that has prevented new businesses coming in and seeing fun things that the community would want to see. Like the furniture store was a furniture store before it was a furniture store, before that was a furniture store. So things like that, I could see a use case for eliminating or reducing those fees. I don't know what that would look like, and I think that's separate from what we're talking about here, but I would be interested in looking at that at some point.
Yeah, I suspect all of council reflects that point of view as well.
Okay. And so one approach on that discussion is to look at expanding the reductions on Main Street and other opportunities to, if not charge change of use fees. We can look at that for sure.
And I think part of the downtown plan too, that's where, to the question of when is it going to come up, but I'll talk to Jason tomorrow and make sure that we're thinking holistically on that. If it's not something in that, we'll figure out how to make sure that it's coming back.
Okay.
Yeah, we hear it.
So we know that we can lower impact fees by sub area, and we know that we can lower them by radius to a transit stop. Can we, like, what are the other tools we have? Like I brought up land use designation and was told that's probably not defensible. Like, so what is like what are our other options? Could we have that for the next time this comes in front of us, or could
Wouldn't that be
like
part of the
email?
legal thing?
Okay, is that?
We haven't told you one way or the other. Again, look out for an attorney-client privilege memo that will be hitting your inboxes in the near future.
Thank you. I want to know what our tools and what our options are.
I'm not sure you'll probably correct me, Eileen, but I'm not sure there is a lower limit. That's a choice. You can't go higher. So you could go 0 if you want. But
sure.
The flip side of that is what that means is that long list of multimodal projects.
Yeah, it doesn't, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to, just to be clear, there's only a couple projects that are actually vehicle capacity projects in that list. Most of the rest of it is ped and bike and.
No, totally.
So that's what will happen, and that's what we're trying to balance for you.
And that's why I'm having these annoying conversations, is because I too am seeking that balance. Like I have beef with the whole concept, but I don't think we should just not do impact fees, because like we live in reality and like we need to acknowledge that. Like I just want to make sure we're doing this in a way that doesn't prevent good things from happening if we can get away without it. And like we've seen impact fees prevent good things from happening, and we have some scar tissue around it, as you might be able to tell. So like I just want to make sure that we're doing this as thoughtfully as we can, and we're applying the best tools we have to the job.
Yeah. And again, I just want to stress that I think I lost my train of thought. The way it's looked at now, we're using our comprehensive plan to determine how many anticipated trips we're going to get from growth. So that kind of maximizes how much you're going to get over 20 years. Now, obviously, we could get much more if growth just booms, and we'll get much more. But at the same time, if we get much more than that, then you're going to see a lot of different things happening in terms of the transportation system. We'll have to catch up a lot faster and all kinds of things. So that's kind of the limiting factor in terms of how much we can bring in. After that, anything lower than a certain amount, we reduce it. We're just cutting into that 97 million or however much we thought we're going to get in 20 years. We're just going to be, 85 million or 75 million. And again, what I'm trying to say is, and I'm trying to balance it, what I'm trying to say is if it gets too low, you're not going to have enough money to go after grants, because you won't have the required 20% match for a lot of these grants. And so you won't be able to go after grants. So now that 70% of our income starts shrinking proportionately. And that's kind of the conundrum we're in, so.
For projects that do struggle to pay the fees, do we have like a pay over time option, or is that something we could deploy?
There is in Title 20, there's some deferred, it's mostly for residential. Yeah.
What is the length of time that it can go to?
It's not paid out over time, but instead of paying it permit issuance, you pay it occupancy. So it's not a payment plan.
I appreciate the flexibility there, but I would love to know if there's any options to, let's say someone has a 5-year business plan. I don't know what's feasible, and I don't want to put the financials in jeopardy. I'm very conscious of what Steve just said about like we need the matching money. The grant portion of our transportation budget is much bigger than the TIF portion, and I do not want to jeopardize that as much as we can control. But if there's any flexibility for us to say like that's a use we want, I don't want it to be based on like what we want necessarily, because that's not very fair, but like if that's a good use, it's good in the zone, right? Like, okay, let's say, I'm going to stop making up hypotheticals. The point is it'd be cool to give people options if we can.
Yeah, we can definitely, I'm not familiar with but we will look into it for sure.
Okay.
I like that suggestion, and just, I think sort of implicit in what Councilmember Dodd was saying is that if that option, well, it's not really available to residences right now, but we have also talked about how important it is to attract business and commercial to create the community that we're hoping to see develop here. And so I'd like to see that option of, spacing, like breaking out those payments over time, not just for housing, but also for commercial. Yeah.
I meant specifically commercial, but
Yeah. Yeah, just to see what that's like. And then I was also trying to think back to, what was getting built and what was opening in 2019 when we have these projections on slide 6. And it was like Six Oaks, it was like the junction coming in around that time. And like, then to my previous question about case studies, it would be really interesting to see how impact fees for like the newer developments in downtown worked out, so that we can see, what, like, and not, all the money is it's holistic, it's going into all of our projects, but like these impact fees turned into these projects over time, so we can kind of see like the process and how it works out. I'm still stuck on slide 6, unfortunately. Ed, and these might be, offline questions, but the 6,000 trips that was calculated in 2019, that was all development in 2019, the additional trips estimated.
So this is a good question. So when we look at the trips, that's 6,000 trips over 12 years averaged. Because we don't look year to year. So what we did is based on growth and growth estimates, and we now have a different set of growth estimates based on the 2024 comprehensive plan. We expect this much growth, and we think it's going to happen over this amount of time, and this is the fair share. Now, if all that growth happens tomorrow, all the money comes in, we have to spend it. If it takes longer, that means there's fewer impacts, and it can be spread out over time. But it's our best guess. And in 2019, that's when it was based on vehicles. That was the
when it
best
was
estimate.
only based on vehicles.
Yes.
Now that 12 years thing, does that really mean like you're calculating 72,000 trips, the 6,000 times 12?
No, that was 6,000 trips total over 12 years.
Over 12 years.
Yeah.
So it would be then divided by 12.
500 trips a year. And when you say trips, it's okay, a house generates 0.99 trips. I think it's 1.00 now. And a certain commercial use generates 0.2 trips per 1,000 feet. And that's, so it's kind of use the different types of uses to calculate the number of trips. And that's
once again, we're asking math questions.
Yeah. Yeah. But that'll all be part of the backup.
Yeah.
You'll see the project list, you'll see the growth related expense, that could be the total expense. What portion of that is capacity that could be charged to growth, when we think it's going to occur over time, and we pick a time span of 12 years because that's what's in the current code, and say we think we're going to get all these projects. We think that this much is eligible to provide additional capacity. It's only the capacity related cost. So when you saw back here, it was 223 and we can only say 60, and then we just divide it to make an average. And then once again, we look at these every few years. We were looking at this before the comp plan, but it didn't make sense. Wait until this happens. So this isn't something that's one and done.
Maybe I can frame some questions from what I heard so far. So from the first question, essentially the first question allows a reduction in certain areas. And I think what it does is it incentivize that you want more growth to happen in those particular areas. So you don't want a lot of growth in Maywood Hill residential area. You'd rather have it downtown or in Canyon Park or North Creek Business Park. So that's one tool to be able to use that. And like Boyd is saying, it's very defensible because you have a lot of infrastructure being built for those particular areas. So that's kind of one question. The other one was affordability, and I'm assuming it's a yes. It gets very complicated because, like Boyd said, we already have certain reductions already because of the housing discussion we had before. So you start layering these, you're a senior, you're ADU, you're affordable. You start layering it, and pretty soon it's very complicated what your actual payment's going to be. I hear other things being interest, like smaller redevelopment. If it's a large-scale redevelopment, I'm hearing you don't want them to be exempted or reduced. You'd rather have the pizza parlor, a furniture to a pizza parlor or something like that. You want to you're not saying it's an open thing.
Well, yeah, what I was
It's
getting
more
at,
for
like-
specific things that you want to make sure that we're not inhibiting small businesses or things like that.
That was in specifically as it relates to the change of use impact fee, like if there's like, and I wasn't entirely clear on the conversation, so like if there's a really small building and they're really building a really big building, like that's
Okay.
not a change of use impact fee. Like you shouldn't be able to get out of impact fees because of that, but like, but not in a general sense. That was like specifically as it related to the change of use conversation.
I think we can think about that. I think one of the things that we will need to do when we come back is give you some practical examples, like test cases on, here's one size of things, this is what kind of resulted, here's another kind of thing, here's what resulted and why. And then also the other thing we would do is tell you how it affects the bottom line number. And if it does affect the bottom line number, we'll go back to the projects and say, this is about what it would look like if we had to make that adjustment. This project goes away or something like that. So that's kind of how we envision coming back, because it really is kind of complicated. We would come back and kind of tell you, okay, this is what we heard. These are the things that are most important to you. Let us go back and figure it all out. And then we will come back and somehow try to portray to you what it kind of would look like.
And maybe I should have asked this a different way earlier. Like fundamentally, when I look at the quarter mile map, like it's defensible, but like it sure looks like we could do it better and do it smoother. And there's weird gaps and like if somebody's a third of the mile away and like of each one, like, is there a way we can smooth that out and make that a little bit nicer? Like, cause that's what I was getting at with the zoning questions and like.
So more predictable.
Yeah.
Going to Councilmember Kurtz. I think we can. I think the reason we started with the quarter mile is because it's in legislature that we have to do that, and it's a walkable quarter mile. It's not a radius quarter mile. And it took a little bit of time, but they came up with it. We
Yeah.
use GIS and figure out what a quarter mile actually is based on what we have there. We could smooth it out to make it more predictable. That's the other thing we heard. Even if we go to areas, we need to make it more predictable and not so complicated that people shy away from it. Oh, I didn't even want to start that process. It's just too complicated. But really, I think the general idea with the areas are, we really do have different areas in the city. We have strongly residential, and we have these areas we really want mixed use. Do we want to use our tool by reducing the impact fee in those areas? We haven't told you how much. It might be 5%, 2%. It could be, whatever. That's what we got to figure out. But if you want to incentivize it and try to get more growth in those areas, that would be one tool.
I think the answer is yes, and I have quibbled about details.
And we need to make it
Yeah.
simple. We don't want to make it complicated and chase people
Hypothetically.
away. Yeah. Okay.
A potential, what we could consider around, I'm trying to find the slide. Instead of the quarter mile distance, what if we just looked at it around transit corridors? Could that be a strategy that would smooth it out?
I think we'll get the gist of what you're looking for. I think the problem we have is we need to make sure we meet the legislative requirement. So what we would do would be a little bigger. It wouldn't be smaller. If we really want to smooth things out, it would be smooth bigger, I guess is what we're telling you. And in some of those cases, it might not even work.
Around here for that too.
Yeah, and that's fine, because some of those areas you can't even walk to anyway, because there's nothing there, so, yeah. Okay.
No, I've already talked way too much. Sure, we'll break until 8 o'clock. All right, welcome back. We have another study session, and I'm going to kick it over to the city manager.
Thank you. And this is definitely intended to be a conversation among council members, but we are going to tee things up. As you'll recall, back at your retreat earlier this year, there was a subcommittee formed of council members to discuss potential engagement options. And so staff have been supporting that subcommittee, and we'll be teeing things up tonight. But then you do have 3 committee members, too, who are all consecutively sitting next to each other. So that's really great. So joining us tonight is Assistant City Manager Becky Range. And then she's also joined by our Communications and Engagement Manager, Mason Luvera, who is making his City of Bothell minutes to be written debut. So we'll have our first YouTube and minutes iteration with Mason here tonight. So welcome, and I'll turn it over to you to lead the council through the framing.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's my first one, so we'll go through it. As a reminder, council, no actions required on your behalf. We're just going to facilitate a conversation this evening. So an overview, what we're looking to do is we're going to provide you with some background on this council engagement event series, discuss some options to something you would like to move forward with, and then if so, identify a preferred plan and possibly confirm a path forward. Some background for you. In late 2024, council scheduled 2 council conversation events in the community. One was at the Bothell Library and the other was at the North Creek Schoolhouse. And earlier this year, a subcommittee of council members, Curd, Aldrichs, and Dodd, met to discuss how the events could evolve into a more regular and predictable program. That subcommittee requested a study session to gather feedback from the full council on that potential series, and that's what we're here to discuss this evening. So to summarize the subcommittee findings, recommendations for the event included having 2 to 3 council members in attendance for each event, having them held every other month, having them located at varying facilities in the Bothell community and scheduled at different days and times to accommodate a diverse mix of schedules and, of course, community member availability. To outline the discussion we're looking to have with you this evening, this is an event that you do want to move forward with. We want to understand and identify what the series name will be, the event structure, timing and locations, and of course opportunities to help them sync with other community events happening in Bothell. So with that, we'll go ahead and start our discussion. What we'd like to know is this indeed an event series that you do want to formalize? And if so, when would you like to get started with that?
I'm going to jump in with a proposed series name that came up in just chatting a little bit ago. I don't think we've considered council in the community before. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
Great.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
It's got alliteration. We all like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I like that name.
And it couldn't be connections, and there were so many things that it couldn't be that we were having a hard time coming up with something. And so Karsten said something about council meeting in the community, and I was like, that's it right there.
Great. We can expedite right through. Excellent. Council, looking at the structure for this, we talked about different opportunities for how we want to facilitate it, of course, in different locations across the community. Is this something that you would like to get started with in the near term? Would you like us to start scheduling these later out? What's preferable for you?
I have a thought that might relate to some of the other things is, generally speaking, we have heard a desire for this from the community when there's a particular topic of conversation that is, we'll just say popular, where people really want to talk with us. And I would be really interested in like let's do a couple of these, but maybe on a trial basis. Like, let's not necessarily commit to we're going to do these quarterly forever, just to see if people show up. Because we didn't have any public comment tonight, and there's a meeting right here where people could come and talk to us. And I just don't know if we are a very big draw right now in the community, but I am sure that we will have popular topics again. And it would be really good to have a structure set up for ad hoc community meetings. So we know, in the north end, we go here. In the south end, we go here. Here's the thing, this is popular. Let's set it up. When can we schedule it? It would be really nice to be nimble when we have those in the future. So maybe we use a couple events this year as a way to kind of see what works and have the ability to set up. And if 50 people show up and we have great conversations, let's roll with it and just keep doing it, is what I think.
Great. The subcommittee identified a couple locations, the Senior Center and Station 45 as being preferable for our first 2. And of course, please jump in if you have additional thoughts on that. But we absolutely could get started with those 2 locations as a trial for the event series.
I do think there's a magic to starting when things aren't super busy in a public comment sense. so that we work out any kinks, you know, like figure out how the projector works at different places or whatever it is. Like, I don't think we're gonna have a slide deck to project, but you get what I mean. And then when we do have a large attendance, we're not like trying to figure out like, oh, who's turning the lights on, who's unlocking the door, that kind of stuff.
Totally. Like, yes, like figure out all the kinks, like let's get all those ironed out so we can just execute when we do have something that's popular and we know it's going to work and we know what we're doing.
Well, and the magic there too is like if we look at the comp plan, there were years of work in advance that we might have, were we at predictable places at predictable times, we might have been able to catch some people beforehand.
First off, love this idea. I participated with and substituted for Davina when she had these going on. And it was a great community engagement. It was real, and I enjoyed reading this. I don't know how much of this was their minds melding with staff's mind, but it came out really nice. It's their work. Props. It's good. But I have to say, for me, myself, this is my input on it, I have no bandwidth for this. And the clock is ticking for me. And I am wondering if it would behoove the council to have this conversation on how people want to commit to this and participate in this when you got your new council on board and on deck in January. That's just an idea. And I sat there and my brain started to short circuit. I was thinking about, okay, so if you met every other month and there's 7 council members, technically this should be a permutations combinations math exercise, but I didn't do that. I just averaged everything out. And over 2 years, this is my simple math, over 2 years, every council member would do this 5 times. So I think that's a conversation that, get everybody committed to, do we want to meet every other month or do we want to do it quarterly? And some issues would be some things like back when we were doing the comp plan, every other month would have been spectacular. So, but at any rate, I just wonder, and this is on your, you guys decide, but would it be better served and have more success if you have the 2026 council weighing in and owning what they create for connecting with the community? It's just an idea.
I'd love to see this this series be ongoing, and I think one of the types of meetings that we can have is sort of like 101s, how-tos, how to prepare for a council meeting, how to show up for public comment, right? Like just a little bit of like getting to know your government and teaching people and giving people the tools of how to engage, I think would be really beneficial. And that at, the every other, I don't know what's better, if every other month is better than quarterly. I think if something's not happening once a month, people forget that it's happening. But I don't think any one of us wants to do every month. So, yeah, and I'm even looking at just the rest of the year. I'm assuming that we're not having one in July since we are in July. So either we're going to start in August, and that would be August, October, December, or we hold or we say we're not doing December because everybody's busy with the holidays and we're not doing that. Or we say to wait until September and we do September, November. I'm not sure what the right answer is, but at least those are some options ahead of us.
Did we, and let me know if I'm imagining this, I don't often dream about subcommittee meetings, but you never know. Did we talk about even months but not December, so 5 times a year? Is that where we landed? Okay, cool. Didn't make it up.
Are we sending out the mailers on a quarterly basis? Okay, I'm just thinking ways to advertise the upcoming one. If we could time it with these events, that would be good. I think every other month might be a little bit too frequent. I like the idea of quarterly. I think experimenting with the types of meetings, whether it's hot topics that we know we're going to get a lot of feedback on, or could be just open free form. It could be part one thing, part like educational, like how do you engage with government? What are the mechanisms in the city that you can learn more about and getting involved, things like that. I think it could be really interesting. I know we're already halfway through the year, as city manager pointed out earlier today. August is generally a council recess. Doesn't mean we couldn't do one in August, but I know the clock is ticking for this year already. So I don't know. It's an interesting idea, and it's one that it seems like people have shown up in the past when it's been done informally. So I think it's a good idea. I just don't know how much work it takes to put it on, to reserve the space, to advertise, and all those things. So I think quarterly sounds like a more doable time frame, and then aligning it with communications going out could be helpful to driving attendance.
I like the how-tos too, because like when the intersection just that I'm pointing at over there changed from a 4-way stop to a 2-way stop, I had people who were like, you need to change it back. And just explaining what the city council does and doesn't do was a conversation I had a lot more in that immediate time frame than perhaps any other time in office. So I think explaining to people how just like we can look at a decision, whether it's popular or unpopular, and talk about how it got to the decision point, who made it, just different. I think that could be really helpful, especially if we're between budgets and comp plans, like we might, not that something else might not come up, but it could be cool.
And just a real quick reminder, as part of the community engagement strategy, there is a project in the works right now to develop a City Hall 101 curriculum, which will address some of the things you're talking about. It'll be just an online curriculum first, and then potentially an in-person series later on. But I think those two efforts will go hand in hand a little bit to help with that.
That's cool. Thank you.
That is cool. The topics and frequency, I think we can test and learn our way into it. And there's things sounds like staff is doing already, so we can complement as council. I think consistency is key, whether we do it bi-monthly or quarterly or twice a year, whatever. But it's just as long as it's maybe more frequently than twice a year, just for consistency and stay on top of mind for people. As long as it's happening, even if 2 people show up at any given one, it's okay, because the next one will probably get more, or the next one is going to be a hot topic. We're going to get 100 people showing up, So, but consistently being out there in the community, I think, is a good thing, and will bring people in eventually, Whether we start this year or next year, are you looking for an answer right now, or are you looking for an answer later? Or we're going to answer later?
I think there's a strong consensus one way or the other, and then we can take that answer, and it helps staff formalize the program so we can get it ready. But if there isn't yet, we're happy to prepare both options for your consideration at a future date as well.
I don't feel strongly either way, but it's going to be September, October, November, either that, because we're going to skip August, unless we want to do August also.
What's the publication deadline for the next Bothell Bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be in 65 days, but I'm going to double check that number and get back to you.
I think that could inform when we start. Like, I think if we do October and then we say, we're back in February with more, that could be a way to just get something started.
The question is, do you want to do it now and just do once and then skip 3 months, or do you want to just start in January and then doom, 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 doom? Doom, 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 meaning is a technical term for consistency.
Could you elaborate on that?
Did you learn that from ChatGPT?
Claude.
Okay, sorry. I feel like it would be best to start it after when we have the opportunity to get the word out for it. Like when we, let's communicate it after, we can do one earlier. I'm not against it, but I would like people to come. And I think the more people that know about it, the better chance we have for success.
When we have the next couple of bridge or mailers or social media communicate, whatever it is, we can start, priming people for it, and then we'll have it that way. We can have a schedule for it. And it's like, here's the schedule. You're gonna get a bunch of random people council members showing up, type thing.
Absolutely. There's, a lot of value in us being able to have a long lead time in promoting this event, especially being something new to the community. The format, not necessarily, because you did have two. But having regularity behind it does give us the ability to say, hey, this is coming up, right? Mark your calendars. Here's what's coming starting next year or starting next month. In terms of promotion, we have a lot of different channels that we can get the word out through. The bridge, being a physical mailer, has a lot of benefit because it is something that arrives in folks' mailboxes. But we have all of our digital channels, of course, so that's a much shorter lead time for us, and we have a lot of flexibility there. So in terms of the promotion, we'll of course put a heavy push behind this, but we have a lot of options on how we start to introduce it to the community. So if I'm hearing everybody correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking at starting this in the new year and promoting it in the near term leading up to that, and we want to do it on a quarterly basis and have some themes behind it. Does that all track correct?
I think we'd be fine with having an event later this year.
Okay.
Like, a month or so after the bridge comes out, so people have time to see it or notice.
Great.
If we do it quarterly, then we can do the last quarter of this year and advertise it in the bridge, and then just start Q1 of next year. I hate that I just said Q1, but you get the idea.
I think the Mason mentioned that it doesn't matter if it's we don't have to tie it to the bridge, the mailer. I guess
No, it's just a way to get the word out. We do have people who say that they do not participate in online things. So
okay.
There is, of course, a digital divide that we always try to be cognizant of in the community to ensure that we don't rely solely on social media because, as you were just saying, Councilmember, not everyone is on it, right? So that is one of the bigger challenges that most communicators today face is how do you reach people beyond our digital channels? And we are fortunate to have that physical mailer that does get quite a lot of spread in the community. So it is an important asset, but we're not limited solely by it. But from an equity perspective, we of course would like to make sure that we are able to promote it across all of our channels as we lead up to the first one.
And I think we have Gabby, she has, we have a city connections with community organizations. We can also spread the word through those organizations.
Absolutely.
I do like the idea of making sure that we time these so that they can be published in the bridge, because then we do, I think our communication strategy around social media and email is strong, but the mail is the one that is often what people are looking for, but I don't think we can write it off entirely. But as I'm looking at the schedule of the bridge publications, like the newsletter, not the bridge anyway, I'm seeing fall, spring, summer, but not, is there a winter edition that goes out too? I'm just looking at the.
We do have a winter edition that does go out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like the idea of doing quarterly and within a month of the bridge coming out. I like that schedule.
Great.
I think it was a great summary of the themes that you heard. I think in addition to what the mayor mentioned in terms of we could do one this year and not necessarily wait for the next year. I think the previous concept too of the popular topics was an astute one of developing something that's sort of what's the kit or the run of show that we would anticipate that you can then slot different topics in. I think that would be a good piece of work too to also be developing so that if we see an emergency issue, I think then it's a tool that council can be aware of that you can bring up to each other in council conversations to say, boy, we've heard the last two meetings, we've heard a number of public comments about a specific question. While we don't have one of these events scheduled, would it make sense to do something? So I think keeping that theme sort of maybe at the next level down is a good one. Let's make sure to hold on to.
One of the things that I had kind of shared in the subcommittee was in developing themes and developing conversations that we should have, there's kind of maybe a bit of a radical opposite approach of having the community decide what they want to talk about and honoring what they have come and spent their time to share. And that inherently makes it complicated for us to prepare because we have to be ready for any type of conversation. But I think that, we do have a good idea of some of the hot button issues, and we can share that during the meetings as we get closer. But I still like the idea of having some way for the people that show up to help drive the conversation, and it not just being like a one-on-one class or adult education. And we recognize that there are people that brought their families to these events too, just maybe due to lack of childcare, but also, programming it in a way that is respectful of people's time, that they can come in and leave the conversation. They don't have to stay for the whole time. Those are sort of the things that I want to make sure that we're cognizant of when we're planning something. We don't have an agenda to walk through as much as it is just a conversation. So I don't know how you plan for that. I'm thinking about some ways, and people who sign up should also be thinking about that.
Something to expand upon that your thoughts are making me consider is when we talk about the digital divide, there's actually a flip side to this, which is it's a great tool for access. And when we talk about trying to promote an event, one of the opportunities we could have is engaging folks in the process of determining what will be discussed at the event through our social channels. A great way we can do is on Instagram through a story, we can do a poll and ask people to choose 3 topics that they'd like to hear discussed, or write a question that would get submitted to us, right? And then we can use that to provide you with some context framing on what you might want to discuss or speak about, and then take that information that actually occurred in the meeting itself and turn it back into digital content that we can share back with the community. So even though someone may not physically have attended this event, right? Let's say if they did respond to our poll or they did drop a question in the comments, right? We then provide an answer to that. That gives them a connection back to council through those social channels. So we do have opportunities there as well, and we're always thinking about how we pull that into these strategies to help you be better connected to the community in any way we can.
I really like all of that because the thing that I want to talk about is what the community wants to talk about. And I think us being like, here's what we're going to talk about this week is it's more important that they get a chance to talk to us and ask us questions, and that we are accessible. So I wrote down is there a way we could have registration and ask people hey, when you sign up for this, and you don't have to sign up for it, but please give us questions, so we have an idea. And obviously somebody can come in at the last minute and say something. There's always the opportunity for that no matter what we do, and that's okay too, because we can think on our feet and we might not have all the answers because we haven't prepared, but we can talk to somebody about it.
Question. Last couple of something that Councilmember Kerr triggered in my mind, the question of, especially when we're talking about the interesting topics, it could get very much into one-on-one conversations happening a lot. Are we going to have moderations or moderator, or how are we going to, how are you thinking about formatting this thing such that we won't get into that situation?
A good way to think about this type of event structurally is it's a very casual conversation. It's a place where folks know they can show up and talk and interact with you all, right? It's not moderated in a formal sense in terms of what we've previously discussed. And I think that if you think about the quote unquote coffee with council, which is commonly used across the country, right? It's just a, hey, show up, meet your council members, ask a question. And we're taking that format and trying to customize it based on what you and the community would like to see. So to answer your question directly, there's not a moderation element currently planned, but of course we could discuss options for that if that's what council desires.
Maybe I said moderation, not in the traditional sense of having, somebody and it's oh, stop, like a referee type thing, but, to manage the conversation such that we will be able to answer questions and have conversations in a cordial manner,
Facilitator, I think.
Maybe facilitator is a better word for it than moderator. Yeah.
The first one that we had at the library, I was so worried about. I was oh, things could go so wrong, but they didn't. And I think one of the ways that it didn't go wrong is because we set community agreements at the very start, and we said, honor the time that the person sitting next to you has come to share what's on their mind, and don't speak more than, so we kind of set up the guardrails on the conversation early, and we all agreed to it. And if someone didn't want to agree to that, they could make a one-on-one appointment with us. Like, we still have office hours, right? So I think everybody realized that they were there for, they had a shared expectation of what they were going to get out of it. And I think that, some people it exceeded their expectations, some people it did not. And they can choose what to do with their time from there. So I think that was one way that we had like kind of a self-facilitation. And it was delicate because we all had to agree to it. But in the end, I think everybody was respectful and realized that they're part of the community. So
We also did have one brave community member who kind of jumped in and started facilitating the meeting in some ways, because there were times when like it did seem like kind of piling on and people talking over each other, and it was really helpful to see, somebody who was not on council and who just had those skills kind of just show up in that moment, and it was a service, I think, to our community in that moment. And from experience, not every meeting, not every time we get together in the community is it going to be like that. That was just a particularly hot button topic in that moment. And ultimately it ended up shaping future policy discussions, because that's how we prioritized parking enforcement in downtown. So I think people came away from it feeling heard on that topic. So, but then there's the other times where it's just like 2-3 people show up. Yeah. Like that was my introduction to Davina, was at one of her meetings at the library.
I just wanted to make a comment too, that depending on where the location is will really inform what the facilitation and the meeting is like. So I think having the first one at the senior center will actually be great, because they're great hosts and we have a great relationship with their wonderful CEO, Nathan Phillips, and I know he would be willing to help. And so in many ways, that will probably be a great, easy event to facilitate because of how they operate there. But I do think things will change slightly depending on the location and who's hosting us.
Well, and we can't necessarily design a program that will cover all of like the full spectrum of human behavior. Like there will always be people who will step up and help. There will always potentially be someone who will lower the tone of discourse. And I think just the fact that we've all chosen this role puts some of the onus on us to kind of, like Councilmember Cridd said, just set the expectations. And, I've had maybe 2 interactions in 3 years that were concerning. And so I'm not super worried about it, but it also means the 3 that are going to be there, 2 or 3, just work together on that stuff. And I think we all have in common wanting to find good community.
Excellent. All right. Thank you all for the great feedback. We'll go ahead and take this and compile a proposal for a format for this event, and then we can come back for further consideration and get started on making it happen. All right. Thank you all.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So obviously it's not going to be in August. When are you going to bringing it back? Because if we're going to have one this year.
To clarify, it'll be through informal channels. We'll just make sure that as we prepare the plan of action, that you're informed of what it looks like, and we'll get it scheduled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
We don't need them to give a report on what they're doing for scheduling an event.
I'm guessing it's going to be September or October.
Correct.
And you'll let us know.
Sometime after the
Yeah.
bridge,
Yeah.
and it'll probably be at the senior center, and
Yeah.
it'll be fun.
Sorry, the mailer bridge or the physical bridge?
The
I'm
internet
so
did not know
confused.
the difference when I searched.
I'm going to have to adjourn before Amanda confuses me anymore. Mason, thank you for coming. It's really nice to have you here, and welcome to the team. And with that, we're adjourned.
Appreciate it.